It's Brandon Cruz Daily Fantasy Podcast, where I go and look at loan plays and strategies specifically designed for GPPs. This is a show for people who are already informed on daily fantasy sports and how these contests operate. If you have a question related to NASCAR, this is a stupid question, feel free to shoot them away on Twitter, BrandonCruzDFS. Most importantly, take everything here with a grain of salt and use your best judgment when making entries. Additionally, if you have a gambling addiction, that's just not my problem. Check your sense of feelings at the door. We're looking at the Xfinity Series race at Richmond, and so I want to kind of talk about how I believe this race is going to shake out and why I think it's different than what we normally see at Richmond. And so when you look at extremely short tracks like Bristol, Richmond, Martinsville, and when you look at extremely big tracks, Atlanta, or not Atlanta, Auto Club when we were going there, Michigan, some of the faster tracks, like I would even throw Atlanta in there as well, because we do see equipment play a big factor. And what I mean by that is if you're a small team, if you're running not, the top tier type of equipment, you're at a disadvantage at the big tracks because you don't have as much horsepower. And so you're limited by your top speed, and you typically get lapped, or the field just leaves you under the green flag. Well, the same thing can be said about the short tracks, to where if you're a Mike Harmon, if you're even a DGM to an extent, certainly MBM Motorsports, Jimmy Means for an example, when you're these teams going to a short track, I wouldn't say stress, but what's required of your motor isn't on par of what the big teams are. And so, like here at Richmond, you're going to be going from a very high RPM to a very low RPM in rapid succession, because you're exiting turn 2 on the throttle, probably all the way up to 75, 8,000, 8,300 RPM, and then you drop to about 44, 42, 41, and so you need a motor that's going to get you those 4,000 RPMs in fourth gear as fast as you can through that acceleration zone of pretty much the two straightaways on this track. Although Richmond does have a, it's not a straightaway on the front on the front stretch, but you get what I'm saying. And so I think we're going to see a lot of the bad teams perform poorly in this race. And I don't think we're going to see a lot of place differential from those teams. And so I think the main place differential is going to be the obvious place differential plays. I don't think we're going to see people like, and for longtime listeners of the program, my friend AO, I don't know him, but, a favorite here, good old AO and the Jimmy Means Machine starting 40th. If I can't pronounce his name no matter how I attempt it. I always butcher it, but AO starting dead last. I don't see much coming from him. And Jimmy Means, and I think Jimmy is positioning himself to have a better run next season, because we're seeing him bring in different drivers, bringing in sponsorship money, bringing in legit good cars. He's just basically catching up on being able to buy tires and buy maybe not top tier equipment, but equipment that's going to actually be worth something next year. So look, I'm looking towards the 52 more next year. But anyway, I don't see AO doing anything. I don't see CJ McLaughlin doing anything. Sam Mayer in the BJ McLeod car. I know it's a Junior Motorsports prepared car, but Sam would be, kind of around the first guy that I'm looking for to start passing. Once you get to like David Starr, Stephen Light, even with the Hattori prepared entry, I think the most we see from Stephen is maybe 10 place differential plays. And so I think because of that, we're going to see Stephen Light be the chalk place differential play, the chalk value play, because he's the only guy who's going to get any positions gained, really. Spencer Boyd, I don't see him gaining much. I don't see Mason Massey gaining much. I don't see Kyle Weatherman gaining much. And if they do, Steven should be able to finish exactly with those guys that I'm speaking of. And so even if Weatherman, Light, end up finishing 31st and 32nd, well, Stephen Light is going to give you more place differential points from there. Landon Castle, him and I think it was Vargas switched car numbers this week because they need some points. Which one is Castleton this week? Because JD Motorsports is needing it says Castle's in the 4. Vargas is in the 6. Howard's in the 15. I guess they didn't swap numbers. I'm pretty sure that they just swapped equipment. Like, I don't know why people are disregard that. I'm kind of just going through my list here of things that I thought I need to talk about, but that doesn't concern me at all. So Landon Castle, if anything, I think Stephen Light should be like 6,200 and Landon Castle should be like 7,100, but that's just me. I won't be going Landon Castle. Dale Earnhardt Jr., if you're on the Twitter sphere, you see all the propaganda going around talking about, Dale Earnhardt Jr. has a good chance to win this race. Statistically, this is his best track. If you look all the way back to 1999, he's got a top 10 in every single race here other than one. And when you look back, look at the fields that Jr. is racing in. You're telling me in top tier equipment, he has a top 10 in every single Richmond race? I would hope so. The only thing that Dale Jr. offers is place differential. But with 250 laps on the table for this race, it almost diminishes the more expensive place differential plays. And I'm going to much rather go to guys who can lead laps, who are able to get out in front. And I think that's mainly going to be the drivers out of the Joe Gibbs Racing stable. Brandon Jones starting 16th. Ty Gibbs starting 15th, who I have as my projected winner right now. Ty Gibbs. I like Daniel Hemrick. I think Justin Allgaier can possibly get fast laps in this race too. I think Cindric is locked into some fast laps as well. I think Cindric is going to lead a good portion of this race, probably up until the competition caution, maybe a little bit after that. But when you start breaking down, these drivers in terms of tiers and in terms of lineup construction, if you're paying up for Junior, you're really putting yourself at a disadvantage of really not being able to pay up for guys who should be able to finish inside the top 10. We always kind of talk about how Xfinity and trucks, usually when they don't wreck, is easier to project where they're going to finish. And so if you actually rank all the top tier teams, if you throw Penske in the top 10, if you throw Joe Gibbs in the top 10, if you throw Colleague and Junior Motorsports with our Motorsports, outside, slightly outside the top 10, like a 14th, 15th place team, and that's your top 15. Those are the cars that I want to get in there. And so why am I going to pay a premium for Dale Earnhardt Jr. starting near the rear? But I think Jr. is going to be outscored by guys who are able to get fast laps in this race. Ty Gibbs, Daniel Hemrick, Austin Cindric. And that's with me giving Jr. some fast laps. Right now, I got Jr. projected to lead 30 laps, 15 fast laps, and I still don't see it. I think Junior finishes around 7th to 8th in this race, and I'm not saying that because I want to fade him based on ownership, but I don't think Junior can get there, especially if we end up having 2 to 3 lap leaders in this race and it's not Junior. It is people like Austin Cindric, it is people like Hemrick, it is people like Ty Gibbs, which I think Ty Gibbs should be the favorite because I think he's going to perform the best in here. The only way to really poke holes in that is to say that Junior kills the field, gets out, and leads laps, and he's not contested with any other person in his price range. And so, if Junior can score, I would say if Junior scores 75 points, he's going to be there. But if Junior gets up there and ends up scoring somewhere in the 60s to where you end up having even a 5x, 6x value, I think he's going to be competing with other guys that can easily get that upside. Like I said, I really like Ty Gibbs. And if I start giving Ty Gibbs fast laps, I already given him the win. If I start giving him fast laps, he's going to be towards 68, 69, 70, 71 points. Brandon Jones, if I throw him a few fast laps, if I give him a 4th place finish, we're going to see him in the 60s as well. And so if Dale Earnhardt Jr. scores 70 points, where you have, somebody like Cindric scoring in the high 60s, and you have Ty Gibbs in the high 60s, and you have, say, another driver who can get out and lead laps or on top of his place differential, get laps, like a Daniel Hemrick, if you see him in the 60s, I think that forces Junior out of your lineup just because I just think that's how it ends up going. Now, if Stephen Light really does work his way up and kills the field, finishes around 24th, 23rd, then maybe it opens the door up for these types of drivers to get in there. But man, it's just, personally, I'm not on Junior. He would probably be a secondary interest to me. And so when I'm building lineups, I'm basically building around Cindric, Hemrick, and Gibbs right now. Whether it's 3 of those guys, whether it's 2 of those guys, those are the people I'm focusing around. If I start removing those guys there, like if I start with a build with Cindric, Hemrick, and Gibbs, and then I kind of want to start covering my ass in case different situations happen, well then then I'll replace Cindric with Dale Earnhardt Jr. and build a lineup with that. Or replace Hemrick and do it with Jr. and just mixing and matching people. But I really believe that the place differential plays that are in the teens, Brandon Jones, Ty Gibbs, even Ty Dillon, Riley Herbst in there, like all those guys you can make an argument all those guys are top 10 cars, with Gibbs and Jones being top 5s. And it just depends on how the race plays out. If this race ends up having a one dominator, then I think it leans more towards Junior getting in there, which is what we saw last year with Justin Allgaier killing the field. But man, it's just tough. So right now, I think a very popular build is probably going to be Dale Earnhardt Jr., Ty Gibbs, and Stephen Light. Oh yeah. And so that gives you $7,100 to work with. I think that's a great place to start. And I think I've kind of already talked about how I want to build lineups, and so we'll just go ahead and start giving all these guys grades of how I kind of want to use them. And let's go ahead and do that. So we're here. So I like Cindric. I got him to lead laps. I think there's a good chance he stays out there and can walk away with this race, or at least hold on until certainly out of the competition caution. But there's a possibility he leads the entire first stage, leads into the part of the second stage to where, that's when I see a Joe Gibbs car possibly beating him, or Junior if he does get up there and starts racing. It should be in the second stage, but I would pretty much give the first stage to Austin Cindric. Not going to go Harrison Burton. Excuse me. Not going to go Gregson right now. Haley Didev is really good. He had a really, really fast car in the spring race last year here at Richmond. They weren't necessarily able to replicate that when they came back. Haley still had a fast car, but he was not the dominant force that you saw competing with Justin Allgaier. And so I'm most likely not going to Justin Haley, because I'd much rather go to people like Riley Herbst or Ty Dillon in a similar range. But I say I'll just take him out completely. I don't mind Allgaier. I got him to get some fast laps right now in my early projections. I think he's a guy who can get out there and lead laps. That's where we're at right now. Jeb Burton. I would like Jeb Burton if he was a little bit cheaper. I don't have him getting a 5X right now, so probably not going to use him, because, like I said, I'd much rather go to Herbst, Ty Dillon, people like that. If I can pay up and get some place differential in the 8K range versus playing somebody in the 7K who is kind of locked into needing to where he needs to finish, that's where I'd go. Jeremy Clement's going to be a no for me. And this is a pretty stacked field. Like, it's pretty fast. You even got John Hunter Nemechek back in the Sam Hunt car, which I would argue is basically a 5th Joe Gibbs car. I know it's not a Joe Gibbs car, but in terms of speed, when it's the right driver, that's when I want to play Sam Hunt. He's just a bit expensive. Like we saw at Dover, John Hunter Nemechek was really fast in that Sam Hunt car. They I forgot what they ended up breaking there. I don't remember right now. Anyway, they had a mechanical issue, couldn't finish the race, but John Hunter had one of the fastest cars in that race. And so, man, even going back to, Junior being 12,000, if you want to pivot off of him and play a guy who I think has very similar upside and probably a quarter of the ownership, I'd much rather go to John Hunter Nemechek. I just want to point that out as we're going through. Don't think Allgaier is going to get much than 7th in this race. And sorry, I'm so nasally. I'm still dealing with allergies, and so I apologize if you just hear snot rolling around in my noggin. Not going to go to. Oops. Not going to Allmendinger. Not going to Snyder. I say that. Nick Snyder needs to be considered. He's cheap enough to make it work. Not in my highest scoring lineup right now, but certainly cheap enough. And so Snyder and Nanette, they're way better than some of the 6K range that you see. So like Annette and Snyder are way better than Jay Buford. Obviously, they're $1,000 more, but they're way better than Ryan Sega's plays. They're way better than Tommy Joe Martin as a play. They're way better than, I believe that's the last 6K guy there. And so, if you're building lineups and you got like seven grand left, go to these guys. If you can't get to Snyder and Annette, and for whatever reason you're stuck at Tommy Joe Martin's or whatever, personally, I would rebuild to not land in the 6K range. That's just how I would build this slate. I don't really want to touch the 6K range. I'd rather stay in the 7s or 5s. I don't want to be in the 6. Okay. So Sig's going to be a no because I'd rather just pay up. I'd rather rebuild the lineup and pay up for Snyder or Annette if I'm that tight on money and I like the other guys in there. I love Hemrick. Going to be a no on LeBay. Going to be a no on Williams. Like I said, there's plays in the backs that I like. I love Ty Gibbs. I love Brandon Brown. Not Brandon Brown. Brandon Jones. Sorry. Brandon Brown probably going to... I'm going to keep him a D right now. Not going to Jade. I like Ty Dillon. I like Herbst. I think Herbst is underpriced. If he doesn't get involved in a wreck, I think he should easily hit value. Not going to Mills. Emery's in the R Motorsports here. And so this is another situation too. In my mind, you either pay down to Stefan Light or you play Patrick here in a car that just based on speed alone, unless he's just dog shit at this track, or they show up with a setup that's bad. R Motorsports, this car, even with a guy who doesn't have as much experience as Patrick, and speed alone, it's like a 20th place car, 19th place car. And so if he can just, I'll even take Patrick finishing 24th, honestly. Like if I like the build, I'll take Patrick. And so I think you need to leave Patrick in there. I'm giving him an A right now. He could very easily spin out and wreck. I'm not saying force Patrick into every single line, but I think he's absolutely a guy that I want ownership to and that I want to play. Joe Graff, no. Tommy Joe Martin's, no. Ryan Vargas, no. Earnhardt, no. John Hunter Nemechek's going to be a B. I actually prefer John Hunter Nemechek over good old Junebug. Going to be a no on Colby Howard. JJ Yaley should be able to race his way into 17th. We've seen, outside of what this car can do, JJ has so much talent in this series. I know if you're a longtime viewer of NASCAR, you'd laugh at JJ and his time in the 18, but this is the type of track where JJ excels at in good equipment against a weak field in terms of who he's racing against. I don't see him racing for a top 12. I see him racing for 17th and 18th really easily. He should easily get there. And so when he's racing against the underfunded teams or the guys who aren't racing for top 10s, Yaley should be there. Gonna leave Junior as a B. Right now I feel like I want to be under the field because I feel like everybody's gonna be playing Junior. I'm not gonna go to Castle. Weatherman gonna be a D for me, still in the player pool. Not going to Barry, not going to Mason, not playing Spencer. Light needs to be considered for me. We're going to leave Star in there as well. We're going to leave Sam in there. Going to be a no for CJ, and good old AO is going to be a no for me. So AO is a no this weekend. So this is the player pool that I would probably run and just see what the optimizer spits out with whatever optimizer you're running. Or if you just want a player pool, these would probably be the pool that I would dig from and build with. Give or take, some lineup constraints or who you're working with. But these are the guys that I like. There's a high chance this race is one dominator. That's what I was also going to say. Is so in the previous Richmond races, obviously we had the COVID one. We had COVID kind of dictating some stuff last year. But usually all the fast cars start up front in the Richmond races. And so when you're looking back at previous optimal lineups, you don't see the place differential plays really kill a ton, and you don't see massive place differential plays because normally all the fast cars, so like if they had qualified, Ty Gibbs would be in the top 6. Hammer could probably be in the top 6. Junior would probably be in the top 10. Barry would probably start around 13th. You'd have John Nemechek inside the top 10. You had Riley Herbst inside the top 10. You most likely have Jones inside the top 10, Burton inside the top 10, Gregson. And so that's 9 guys. And obviously Gregson's starting up front, but that's 9 guys that usually should be your top 9 starters that are spread out throughout this field. And so if you're comparing what the optimal of this lineup might be compared to what they have been, I expect more place differential plays to work this race just because they're there, and we normally don't get them at the short tracks in the Xfinity Series. And so why it might seem I'm being a bit higher on place differential plays than what previous optimal lineups suggest, that's why, is because they're not qualifying. And so it's good cars that are starting in positions that were given to them based on their previous race. And so that's the last thing I want to say there. If you want to support me, go to Patreon. Link is in the description below. I understand only about 12 of you guys watch this video, and I appreciate it. If you don't want to join the Patreon, but you want to send me a few bucks, consider throwing it my way on PayPal. That link is also in the description, and thank you guys for listening. And yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.